Hello everyone, welcome to another great adventure over here on RJB Wildlife. On this adventure, we are here at the San Diego Zoo where I'm going to be giving you the State of the Zoo update. So if you're ready for another great adventure, let's go. I want to start this update off by bringing up something that has been in the works to change here in Balboa Park, specifically as it pertains to the parking situation. And the main change with this is that it is going to be starting much sooner than anticipated, as October 1st will be the first day that parking fees will be implemented. There are going to be a couple different forms of fees that are going to be taking place here. Specifically on the streets, you're going to see parking meters start to get built in this area, and they're going to charge around $2.50 an hour, depending on how long you're here. And then in the parking lots, specifically the ones that are adjacent to the Museum of Us, the Natural History Museum and the Air and Space Museum, those are going to be separated into tiers, where Tier 1, which is going to be the more centralized lots, are going to be about $15 a day or $12 a day. I've seen a couple numbers. And then the Tier 2 and 3 lots will be half that amount. Now you're probably wondering, what does that mean for the zoo's parking lot? As a result of the zoo actually having its own lease for this parking lot, that is currently being renegotiated, so parking here is going to be free. As the zoo renegotiates its lease to include paid parking for this lot, I would assume it's going to be something close to what you see over at the safari park, where there is a paid system and members actually can get in for free depending on what tier you have. I would assume that would be the same here. However, I don't know what the motivations for the city are. As more information becomes available, I will be sure to share that with you. But as of right now, this parking lot's going to remain free, and the rest of the parking in Balboa Park will be charged starting October 1st. So now that we've got the boring parking stuff out of the way, let's get into the zoo, and I want to start off in Wildlife Explorers Basecamp, where there have been a few little exciting developments. I first want to touch up on the two buildings here. So Spineless Marvels hasn't seen a whole lot. However, the Goliath stick insects have been removed, and that habitat is now empty, and the giant Asian toads that were housed with the Burmese python are now over in where the former coconut crab was. And in Cool Critters, there weren't any changes to the lower level of this building. However, in the upper level, the Mexican black king snake is now off habitat, and I don't know if it's going to get replaced, but the ball python was replaced with a western bearded anole. With the return of the giant pandas, it meant that the red panda breeding program here had to be downsized. And here at Wildlife Explorers Basecamp, the older male koala did unfortunately pass away. So in that habitat, he was replaced by a binturong, which was in there prior, but when the red pandas had to be moved over, he got displaced. But the most exciting update here in Wildlife Explorers Basecamp is that there is now a new baby squirrel monkey over in the Wildwoods habitat area. The mom has been super protective of the baby, so the best viewing I've been able to get is actually down in the glass area right next to the play area. That is a loud spot, so if you are sensitive to that or not the most fond of kids, I'd recommend avoiding the area, but nonetheless, it is the best spot to see the new baby squirrel monkey. As we transition to the Reptile Walk, I want to bring up a couple things of note here, specifically with the reptile house. There are 8 habitats that are empty in there, including the ones for the Boland's python, which has been empty for quite some time, and most recently the green anaconda, which was moved over to the Cool Critters building. Those 8 habitats are being actively worked on, but I can say that there were 2 other additions in there. A many-horned adder was added, and another snake that I can't identify. I've just been able to see the head thus far. In the Reptile Walk itself, more specifically the California native species area, the Colorado river toads have been off habitat for a good long while. I want to say for about a year to this point, and there's no signs that that's currently actively being worked on. There is also another habitat that isn't housing anything at the moment, so hopefully in time that changes. we are now trekking into the Lost Forest, and there's a number of things that I want to cover here, including a major story that we will also be covering next week at the safari park. The first one I want to mention is going to be over at the bonobos, or I should say across from the bonobos, in the former crowned eagle habitat. A pair of wrinkled hornbills has taken up residence in that space, and I'm unsure whether or not this is a permanent situation. It does appear that the crowned eagles will be staying over in Eagle Trail. So if you recall, the last time we were here, we did the Monkey Trails and Forest Tales exhibit walk, and there was a little bit of a surprise in that video as the DeBrazos monkeys were actually replaced by a pair of red-ruffed lemurs. I did find out a little bit more about this pair. This is a breeding pair, and it's separate from the group over in Africa Rocks. My understanding is this is not a permanent situation in any way, shape, or form. The DeBrazos monkeys will be back. And another cool little thing over here by the Hippo Lagoon is that the fish are starting to become more apparent in this pond, more specifically the cichlids. The cichlids were part of this attraction prior to when it went down, but they did add another species of fish in the form of the tigerfish. But the biggest news here in Lost Forest actually occurs over here in Gorilla Tropics, as Paul, Don, and Jessica have officially been moved to the safari park. This is immensely significant because it means that now there is a silverback at the safari park with that breeding troop, and the bachelors here in Denny, Akuba, and Maka will be able to have full access to this yard for the entire day, which is a lot of fun because all three of these gorillas are actually characters here, and they are beloved by the many regulars that come to this place, including myself. These are always the first thing I want to come and see because they're usually chasing each other around the yard all morning. Today, not so much, but normally you will get a pretty ruckus crowd here. We'll talk about Paul, Don, and Jessica a little bit more next week when we're at the safari park. I will tell you, their plaques have already been removed here. We are now over here at Northern Frontier, and there's a couple things I want to go over. First and foremost is going to be the Polar Bear Plunge supposed renovation. As of right now, that is slated to take place at the end of October when the Halloween event is concluded. From what I know, the iceberg play area that has the seals popping out of the little holes is going to be demolished, and it is unknown what that is going to be. One of the other focuses of this renovation has been the aviary and what is to become of that space. From what I understand, nothing substantial, but they may keep the structure as is. There have been conversations regarding the aviary involving a retrofit in order to house some sort of mammalian animal from the Arctic. That remains to be seen. I do know they have filled the little pool that used to be a lagoon for waterfowl as you entered the Arctic aviary. So, a little bit of an odd choice to fill that with water. One of the big pieces with Polar Bear Plunge also has to be the filtration system, which they are still working on. It is still busted. They are still draining it every week. I have heard that September as well is supposed to be the timeline of when that's complete, but that is also up in the air. That might also be completed around the same timeline as the rest of this. So it remains to be seen, but a lot of work is going to be done here at Polar Bear Plunge in the near future. Another little exciting piece of news here in Northern Frontier is going to be in this habitat right behind me, as they just put a couple of female Bontaboks in here that had spent time off habitat with a breeding male. But the exciting part about this is that both of these females are actually expecting, with calves expected to be born here in the next month. This species, as of right now, is actually no longer considered an endangered species, and it is because of programs like the one here at the San Diego Zoo that make that possible. So, really exciting development, and super excited that we're going to be seeing calves here shortly. So we're now over here in Elephant Odyssey. There's not really a lot to touch up on here outside of just updating what's going on with the rattlesnake habitat. It does appear they've put in some new glass for this, and they did remove the rock that had the little bronze rattlesnake on it. So that's about it. The rattlesnakes are still not on habitat. So we are now over here in Africa Rocks, and there's not a lot of stuff going on here at the zoo either. I do want to point out that the penguins recently got access to this deep portion of their pool. However, at that same time, the fish were also removed. So right now it's kind of barren, and when the penguins aren't in here, it's not as lively. So hopefully in time that changes and we can get a little bit more of a dynamic type of situation, kind of similar to what we saw when this exhibit first opened in 2017. So we're now over here in Asian Passage, and the big thing I want to point out here is that the sloth bear cubs are now taking up residence where Francisco, the Andean bear, used to be. This is significant because it means that A, the bears are getting big, but also there are no plans to replace the Andean bear habitat with another Andean bear in the near future. Now you might be wondering why this is significant. This area is slated to be the next big renovation here at the San Diego Zoo. So as we start to see habitats get emptied and not replaced, you can kind of tell that you're going to get close to that type of a situation. I can also confirm that they do have access to both. I did see them in their original yard today, and then they transitioned over to the second one. So they do have access to both at any given time, so just be vigilant when you walk by there. I will also mention that the former II habitats that were in between the one sloth bear habitat and the grizzly bears has actually been transformed into a garden. So a little bit more of an indication that we're gonna start to see a transformation in this area here in the coming year. We will have to wait and see when that officially starts, but it is looking promising that this area is starting to see some change. Also down here in Asian Passage, a milestone was celebrated yesterday as it has been officially 1 year since the giant panda's return and the opening of Panda Ridge. This was a monumentous occasion here at the San Diego Zoo, so much so that the state of California actually designated it as California Panda Day. Now for this week, they've actually put up this artwork that was a big part of the opening ceremonies of Panda Ridge. And be sure to check out Sing Bao and Yun Xuan, as they both celebrated birthdays here a couple weeks ago. And another really exciting update here is that they are about a year away from breeding attempts. So we are getting even closer to possible panda cubs being here at the San Diego Zoo. So we are now over here in Urban Jungle, and you can probably notice the crowd right behind me. They are enjoying a great view of the baby giraffe that was born here on the 4th of July. He still doesn't have a name yet. That should be coming shortly. However, he is spending a lot of time on habitat with the rest of the herd, and he's gotten comfortable. Initially, he was behind the maternal fencing, and it was a little bit of a tough time to even kind of see him. But now he's comfortable. He's out and about with everybody. And while we're over here in Urban Jungle, I do want to talk about Australian Outback, as nothing much has changed there outside of the fact that the Tasmanian devils have returned. And you've seen a lot of that here on the channel. However, I have not seen them recently, as they like to hide during the day, and they are notorious for doing so. And one other thing I want to mention is this is the final weekend of Nighttime Zoo, which means we are also going to be losing the 9 to 8 operating hours that the zoo has graced us over the course of the last several months. With this change, the zoo will actually be open from 9 to 6 all the way up until the Halloween season, when they will be open from 9 to 9 Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And another sign that summer is coming to an end is that the Halloween merch has started to go on sale here at the San Diego Zoo. So if Halloween is your thing, I highly recommend checking out what they have available, and that collection may actually expand as we start to get even further into the season. That's going to do it for today. If you had fun on this journey, please hit the like button. And if you would like to embark on future adventures, please consider subscribing and ringing that notification bell. And until next time, I hope to see you all again on the next adventure on RJB Wildlife.